Good morning. This is a morning when I'm going to need to call in the special forces, the big guns, for a special problem that somebody I love is having. So we're going to have some pretty intensive prayers this morning, as we did not that long ago. So my plan is to start with the tablet of Ahmad, followed by the fire tablet, followed by the long healing prayer. He is the King, the all-knowing, the wise. Lo, the nightingale of paradise singeth upon the twigs of the tree of eternity with holy and sweet melodies, proclaiming to the sincere ones the glad tidings of the nearness of God, calling the believers in the divine unity to the court of the presence of the generous one. Informing the severed ones of the message which hath been revealed by God the King, glorious, the peerless, guiding the lovers to the seat of sanctity and to this resplendent beauty. Verily, this is that most great beauty, foretold in the books of the messengers, through whom truth shall be distinguished from error, and the wisdom of every command shall be tested. Verily, he is the tree of life, that bringeth forth the fruits of God, the exalted, the powerful, the great. O Ahmad, bear thou witness that verily he is God, and there is no God but him, the King, the Protector, the Incomparable, the Omnipotent. And that the one whom he hath sent forth by the name of Ali was the true one from God, to whose commands we are all conforming. Say, O people, be obedient to the ordinances of God, which have been enjoined in the Bayan by the glorious, the wise one. Verily, he is the King of the messengers, and his book is the mother book, did ye but know. Thus doth the nightingale utter his call unto you from this prison. He hath but to deliver this clear message. Whosoever desireth, let him turn aside from this counsel. And whosoever desireth, let him choose the path to his Lord. O people, if ye deny these verses, by what proof have ye believed in God? Produce it, O assemblage of false ones. Nay, by the one in whose hand is my soul, they are not and never shall be able to do this, even should they combine to assist one another. O Ahmad, forget not my bounties while I am absent. Remember my days during thy days, and my distress and banishment in this remote prison. And be thou so steadfast in my love that thy heart shall not waver, even if the swords of the enemies rain blows upon thee, and all the heavens and the earth arise against thee. Be thou as a flame of fire to mine enemies, and a river of life eternal to my loved ones, and be not of those who doubt. And if thou art overtaken by affliction in my path, or degradation for my sake, be not thou troubled thereby. Rely upon God, thy God, and the Lord of thy fathers. For the people are wandering in the paths of delusion, bereft of discernment to see God with their own eyes, or hear his melody with their own ears. Thus have we found them, as thou also dost witness. Thus have their superstitions become veils between them and their own hearts, and kept them from the path of God, the exalted, the great. Be thou assured in thyself that verily he who turns away from this beauty hath also turned away from the messengers of the past, and showeth pride towards God from all eternity to all eternity. Learn well this tablet, O Ahmad. Chant it during thy days, and withhold not thyself therefrom. For verily God hath ordained for the one who chants it the reward of 100 martyrs and a service in both worlds. These favors have we bestowed upon thee as a bounty on our part and a mercy from our presence, that thou mayest be of those who are grateful. By God, should one who is in affliction or grief read this tablet with absolute sincerity, God will dispel his sadness, solve his difficulties, and remove his afflictions. Verily, he is the merciful, the compassionate. Praise be to God, the Lord of all the worlds. And now we're going to recite the Fire Tablet by Baha'u'lláh. In the name of God, the most ancient, the most great. Indeed, the hearts of the sincere are consumed in the fire of separation. Where is the gleaming of the light of thy countenance, O beloved of the world? Those who are near unto thee have been abandoned in the darkness of desolation. Where is the shining of the morn of thy reunion, O desire of the worlds? The bodies of thy chosen ones lie quivering on distant sands. Where is the ocean of thy presence, O enchanter of the worlds? Longing hands are uplifted to the heaven of thy grace and generosity. Where are the rains of thy bestowal, O answerer of the worlds? The infidels have arisen in tyranny on every hand. Where is the compelling power of thine ordaining pen, O conqueror of the worlds? The barking of dogs is loud on every side. Where is the lion of the forest of thy might, O chastiser of the worlds? Coldness hath gripped all mankind. Where is the warmth of thy love, O fire of the worlds? Calamity hath reached its height. Where are the signs of thy succor, O salvation of the worlds? Darkness hath befallen most of the peoples. Where is the brightness of thy splendor, O radiance of the worlds? The necks of men are stretched out in malice. Where are the swords of thy vengeance, O destroyer of the worlds? Abasement hath reached its lowest depth. Where are the emblems of thy glory, O glory of the worlds? Sorrows have afflicted the revealer of thy name, the all-merciful. Where is the joy of the dayspring of thy revelation, O delight of the worlds? Anguish hath befallen all the peoples of the world. Where are the ensigns of thy gladness, O joy of the worlds? Thou seest the dawning place of thy signs, veiled by evil suggestions. Where are the fingers of thy might, O power of the worlds? Sore thirst hath overcome all men. Where is the river of thy bounty, O mercy of the worlds? Greed hath made captive most of mankind. Where are the embodiments of detachment, O Lord of the worlds? Thou seest this wronged one, lonely in exile. Where are the hosts of the heaven of thy command, O sovereign of the worlds? I have been forsaken in a foreign land. Where are the emblems of thy faithfulness, O trust of the worlds? The agonies of death have laid hold on all men. Where is the surging of thine ocean of eternal life, O life of the worlds? The whisperings of Satan have been breathed to every creature. Where is the meteor of thy fire, O light of the worlds? The drunkenness of passion hath perverted most of mankind. Where are the embodiments of detachment, O Lord of the worlds? Thou seest this wronged one in tyranny among the Syrians. Where is the radiance of thy dawning light, O light of the worlds? I have been forbidden to speak forth. Then from where will spring thy melodies, O nightingale of the worlds? Most of the people are enwrapped in fancy and idle imaginings. Where are the exponents of thy certitude, O assurance of the worlds? Baha is drowning in a sea of tribulation. Where is the ark of thy salvation, O Savior of the worlds? Thou seest the dayspring of thine utterance in the darkness of creation. Where is the sun of the heaven of thy grace, O light giver of the worlds? The lamps of truth and purity, of loyalty and honor have been put out. Where are the signs of thine avenging wrath, O mover of the worlds? Canst thou see any who have championed thyself, or who ponder on what hath befallen him in the pathway of thy love? Now doth my pen halt, O beloved of the worlds. The branches of the divine lote tree lie broken by the onrushing gales of destiny. Where are the banners of thy succor, O salvation of the worlds? This face is hidden in the dust of slander. Where are the breezes of thy compassion, O mercy of the worlds? The robe of sanctity is sullied by the people of deceit. Where is the vesture of thy holiness, O adorner of the worlds? The sea of grace is stilled for what the hands of men have wrought. Where are the waves of thy bounty, O desire of the worlds? The door leading to the divine presence is locked through the tyranny of thy foes. Where is the key of thy bestowal, O unlocker of the worlds? The leaves are yellowed by the poisoning winds of sedition. Where is the downpour of the clouds of thy bounty, O giver of the worlds? The universe is darkened with the dust of sin. Where are the breezes of thy forgiveness, O forgiver of the worlds? This youth is lonely in a desolate land. Where is the rain of thy heavenly grace, O bestower of the worlds? O supreme pen, we have heard thy most sweet call in the eternal realm. Give thou ear unto what the tongue of grandeur uttereth, O wronged one of the world. Were it not for the cold, how would the heat of thy words prevail, O expounder of the worlds? Were it not for calamity, how would the sun of thy patience shine, O light of the worlds? Lament not because of the wicked. Thou wert created to bear and endure, O patience of the worlds. How sweet was thy dawning on the horizon of the covenant, among the stirrers of sedition, and thy yearning after God, O love of the worlds. By thee the banner of independence was planted on the highest peaks, and the sea of bounty surged, O rapture of the world. By thine aloneness the sun of oneness shone, and by thy banishment the land of unity was adorned. Be patient, O thou exile of the worlds. We have made abasement the garment of glory, and affliction the adornment of thy temple, O pride of the worlds. Thou seest the hearts are filled with hate, and to overlook is thine, O thou concealer of the sins of the worlds. When the swords flash, go forward. When the shafts fly, press onward, O thou sacrifice of the world. Dost thou wail? Or shall I wail? Rather shall I weep at the fewness of thy champions, O thou who hast caused the wailing of the worlds. Verily I have heard thy call, O all-glorious beloved. And now is the face of Baha flaming with the heat of tribulation, and with the fire of thy shining word. And he hath risen up in faithfulness at the place of sacrifice, looking toward thy pleasure, O ordainer of the worlds. O Ali Akbar, thank thy Lord for this tablet, whence thou canst breathe the fragrance of my meekness, and know what hath beset us in the path of God, the adored of all the worlds. Should all the servants read and ponder this, there shall be kindled in their veins a fire that shall set aflame the worlds. Okay, and now I'm going to recite the long healing prayer. He is the healer, the sufficer, the helper, the all-forgiving, the all-merciful. I call on thee, O exalted one, O faithful one, O glorious one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Sovereign, O Upraiser, O Judge. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Peerless One, O Eternal One, O Single One. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O most praised one, O holy one, O helping one. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O omniscient, O most wise, O most great one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O clement one, O majestic one, O ordaining one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O beloved one, O cherished one, O enraptured one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O mightiest one, O sustaining one, O potent one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O ruling one, O self-subsisting, O all-knowing one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Spirit, O light, O most manifest one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou frequented by all, O thou known to all, O thou hidden from all, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O concealed one, O triumphant one, O bestowing one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Almighty, O concealing one, O bountiful one. I call on thee, O Almighty, O thou succorer of all, O concealing one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O fashioner, O satisfier, O uprooter, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O perfecting, I call on thee, O rising one, O gathering one, O exalting one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O perfecting one, O unfettered one, O bountiful one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O beneficent one, O withholding one, O creating one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O most sublime one, O beauteous one, O bounteous one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O just one, O gracious one, O generous one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O all-compelling, O ever-abiding, O most knowing one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O magnificent one, O ancient of days, O magnanimous one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O well-guarded one, O Lord of joy, O desired one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou kind to all, O thou compassionate with all, O most benevolent one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O haven for all, O shelter to all, O all-preserving one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou succorer of all, O thou invoked by all, O quickening one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O unfolder, O ravager, O most clement one, Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou my soul, O thou my beloved, O thou my faith, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O quencher of thirsts, O transcendent Lord, O most precious one. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O greatest remembrance, O noblest name, O most ancient way, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O most lauded, O most holy, O succoring one. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O unfastener, O counselor, O deliverer, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O friend, O physician, O captivating one, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O glory, O beauty, O bountiful one. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O the most trusted, O the best lover, O Lord of the dawn. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O enkindler, O brightener, O bringer of delight, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O Lord of bounty, O most compassionate, O most merciful one. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding, O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O constant one, O life-giving one, O source of all being. Thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou who penetratest all things. O all-seeing God, O Lord of utterance, thou the sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O manifest, yet hidden, O unseen, yet renowned, O onlooker, sought by all. Thou sufficing, thou the healing, thou the abiding. O thou abiding one. I call on thee, O thou who slayest the lovers, O God of grace to the wicked. O sufficer, I call on thee, O sufficer. O healer, I call on thee, O healer. O abider, I call on thee, O abider. Thou the ever abiding, O thou abiding one. Sanctified art thou, O Lord my God. I beseech thee by thy generosity, whereby the portals of thy bounty and thy grace were opened wide, whereby the temple of thy holiness was established upon the throne of eternity, and by thy mercy, whereby thou didst invite all created things unto the table of thy bounties and thy bestowals, and by thy grace, whereby thou didst respond in thine own self with thy word yea, on behalf of all in heaven and earth. At the hour when thy sovereignty and thy grandeur stood revealed, at the dawn time, when the might of thy dominion was made manifest. And again do I beseech thee by these most beauteous names, and by these most noble and sublime attributes, and by thy most exalted remembrance, and by thy pure and spotless beauty, and by thy hidden light in the most hidden pavilion, and by thy name cloaked with the garment of affliction every morn and eve, to protect the bearer of this blessed tablet, and whoso reciteth it, and whoso cometh upon it, and whoso passeth around the house wherein it is, heal thou then by it every sick, diseased, and poor one. from every tribulation and distress, from every loathsome affliction and sorrow, and guide thou by it whosoever desireth to enter upon the paths of thy guidance and the ways of thy forgiveness and grace. Thou art verily the powerful, the all-sufficing, the healing, the protector, the giving, the compassionate, the all-generous, the all-merciful. I'm going to read this prayer for America. And I want to say that in this prayer, Abdu'l-Baha praises America and says it's deserving of God's mercy. Sorry, I have to plug my computer in. Just a second. I've thought about that because it's obvious that our country is not just. But I think maybe he's talking about the fact that as deficient as it is, it still gives the people a voice. That's the conclusion I've come to. I'm going to read this prayer. O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees. And render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity. To promulgate the most great peace. To become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors. It is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee, through thy bounty and bestowal. So again, I think that when he says this just government, I don't think he means necessarily the characters who make up the government, but the fact that the form of government gives people a voice. I'm going to read now from a tablet by Bahá'u'lláh. It's called Tarázát, or Ornaments. It starts like this. O thou who hast quaffed the wine of mine utterance, from the chalice of my knowledge, these sublime words were heard today, from the rustling of the divine lote tree, which the Lord of names hath with the hand of celestial power planted in the all-highest paradise. The first Taráz and the first Effulgence, which hath dawned from the horizon of the mother book, is that man should know his own self and recognize that which leadeth unto loftiness or lowliness, glory or abasement, wealth or poverty. Having attained the stage of fulfillment and reached his maturity, man standeth in need of wealth, and such wealth as he acquireth through crafts or professions is commendable and praiseworthy in the estimation of men of wisdom, and especially in the eyes of servants who dedicate themselves to the education of the world and to the edification of its peoples. They are in truth cupbearers of the life-giving water of knowledge and guides unto the ideal way. They direct the peoples of the world to the straight path and acquaint them with that which is conducive to human upliftment and exaltation. The straight path is the one which guideth man to the dayspring of perception and to the dawning place of true understanding, and leadeth him to that which will redound to glory, honor, and greatness. We cherish the hope that through the loving kindness of the all-wise, the all-knowing, obscuring dust may be dispelled and the power of perception enhanced, that the people may discover the purpose for which they have been called into being. In this day, whatsoever serveth to reduce blindness and to increase vision is worthy of consideration. This vision acteth as the agent and guide for true knowledge. Indeed, in the estimation of men of wisdom, keenness of understanding is due to keenness of vision. The people of Baha'i must, under all circumstances, observe that which is neat and seemly, and exhort the people accordingly. So that's the first Taráz. And tomorrow we can read the second Taráz in Baha'u'llah's Book of Ornaments. Okay, so now I'm going to continue reading Baha'u'llah's tablet to Nasir-ed-Din Shah, the Shah of Persia in the 1860s, who was responsible for Baha'u'llah's first banishment and who put pressure on the Ottoman government to keep banishing him until in his fourth banishment he was sent to the prison city of Akka in Palestine. Baha'u'lláh writes this letter to Nasruddin Shah during his third banishment in Adrianople in the 1860s. And in this tablet, he's both appealing to the Shah to look into the situation of Baha'u'lláh and his followers because of the intense persecution that they're suffering at the hands of the clergy and the government. And he's asking the Shah to investigate instead of listening to corrupt ministers. But he's also giving the Shah advice on how to conduct the affairs of the country and make sure that the poor are cared for and that justice is done. So he says, and in this tablet, by the way, this tablet is called the Suriy-i-Haykal, the tablet of the temple, and it's the first tablet in the Summons of the Lord of Hosts, which is a compilation of tablets of Baha'i. And it's found in other places as well. And he says, to enforce the laws of God is not but justice, and is the source of universal content. Nay more, the divine statutes have always been and will ever remain the cause and instrument of the preservation of mankind, as witnessed by his exalted words. In punishment will ye find life, O men of insight. And I'm suspecting that quote comes from the Quran, but I'm going to look it up. Yes, it comes from the Quran. So here he's saying the punishment, the bad things that happen to us, are our means of growth and learning. It would, however, ill beseem the justice of thy majesty that for the trespass of a single soul, a whole group of people should be subjected to the scourge of thy wrath. The one true God, glorified be his name, hath said, none shall bear the burden of another. That's also from the Quran. It is clear and evident that in every community there have been and will ever be the learned and the ignorant, the wise and the heedless, the profligate and the pious. That a wise and reflecting soul should commit a heinous deed is most improbable, inasmuch as such a person either seeketh after this world or hath forsaken it. If he be of the latter, he would assuredly have no regard for aught else besides God, and moreover the fear of God would deter him from unlawful and reprehensible actions. If he be of the former, in other words, the ignorant, the profligate, and, he would just as assuredly, if he be of the former, in other words, if he be a wise and reflecting soul that seeks after the world, he would just as assuredly avoid such deeds as would alienate and alarm the people, and act in such a manner as to earn their confidence and trust. It is therefore evident that reprehensible actions have always emanated, and will ever emanate, from ignorant and foolish souls. We implore God to guard his servants from turning to anyone save him, and to draw them nigh unto his presence. His might and truth is equal to all things. So what Baha'u'lláh is talking about here is this. In the early 1850s, the Bab, whom Baha'u'lláh was following, the Bab was like the John the Baptist of the Baha'i revelation, except that the Bab himself was a manifestation of God, revealed a book. and founded a religion. And his followers were called the Bahá'ís. Now the Bab's life was very much analogous to the life of Christ. He started his mission at 24. He was martyred at 30 because of the fear and jealousy of the clergy and the government. He, like Christ, had thousands of followers. He renewed the law of God, and he was a pure soul, and he taught his teachings flew in the face of the greed and the avarice and the lust for power among the clergy at that time, and therefore he was martyred. And like Christ, a miracle was associated with his martyrdom that was witnessed by 10,000 people, and this happened in 1850. The followers of the Bab, who were called the Bahá'ís, were severely persecuted. And during that time, 2 teenagers, and we all know how reckless teenagers can be, 2 Baha'i teenagers decided that they were going to try to kill the Shah because they were so upset at the persecutions and the fact that the Bab had been martyred and all of this. Well, Baha'u'lláh tried to calm them down and convince them that it was wrong to do this thing, but they tried it anyway. And when the Bab was traveling with his entourage, I think he was going on a hunting trip, these 2 teenagers took what was the equivalent of a BB gun and tried to kill the Shah. They were immediately seized. But what happened was, because they did this, a torrent of persecution was unleashed on the Bahá'ís. 20,000 Bahá'ís were tortured to death. And all they had to do was say that they weren't Bahá'ís, and they wouldn't do it. Baha'u'lláh himself was seized and thrown into an underground dungeon 3 flights below the ground that had no facilities, no heat, no light, and no ventilation. He had 100-pound chains around his neck, and his feet were in stocks, and he was tied to 40 other Bahá'ís. And he lived in this condition for 4 months. And every day the jailer would come and take one of the Bahá'ís and execute him. And this was because of the act of these 2 ignorant, stupid Bahá'ís. And this is what Baha'u'lláh is referring to. He's saying, he's trying to reason with the Shah. This is years later. He's saying, stop the persecution of this Baha'i community, in this Baha'i community, because in every community there are foolish, stupid, unwise people who do things. You can't punish the whole group because of the actions of 2 people who are half out of their minds. And then Baha'u'lláh prays in this letter. He turns to God and he says, "Praise be unto thee, O Lord my God. Thou hearest the voice of my lamentation, and beholdest my condition, my distress and affliction. Thou knowest all that is in me. If the call I have raised be wholly for thy sake, then draw thereby the hearts of thy creatures towards the heaven of thy knowledge, and the heart of the sovereign towards the right hand of the throne of thy name, the all-merciful. Supply him then, O my God, with a portion of that goodly sustenance which hath descended from the heaven of thy generosity and the clouds of thy mercy, that he may forsake his all and turn unto the court of thy favor. Aid him, O my God, to assist thy cause, and to exalt thy word amidst thy creatures. Strengthen him then with the hosts of the seen and the unseen, that he may subdue every city in thy name, and hold sway through thy sovereignty and might over all that dwell on earth. O thou in whose hand is the kingdom of creation. Thou verily art the supreme ordainer in both the beginning and in the end. No God is there but thee, the most powerful, the all-glorious, the all-wise. So grossly hath our cause been misrepresented before thy royal presence, that if some unseemly act be committed by but one of this people, it is portrayed as being prompted by their beliefs. Because the people who do these things are not following the teachings. By him besides whom there is no other God, this servant hath refused even to sanction the commission of reproved actions. How much less those which have been explicitly prohibited in the book of God. So he's saying that he himself won't even allow slight aberrations from the teachings, much less the breaking of the Bahá'í and Bahá'í laws, which are totally peaceful. Okay, I'm going to stop there. If anybody has questions or comments, feel free to type them right now, and I will do what I can to address them. And also if anybody wants to come online with me during these broadcasts, again, just type it out. So I'm going to just say a little of my own prayer for you and for me. I pray that our perception may be enhanced so that we can do that which is effective and will promote the positive things that we want in life. And I ask you, God, to lead us away from those things which temporarily release our suffering, but which ultimately make things worse. I ask you, God, to strengthen our faith. Help us to turn to you in our affliction and to seek your guidance. Either through the revealed guidance that comes today through Bahá'u'lláh, the manifestation of God for this age, through Jesus, through Moses, through Muhammad, through Buddha, through all the messengers of God that have appeared in the world from age to every culture, to guide the people. Help us turn to these divine teachings and really try to live by them rather than just talk about them. Let us turn to you with pure hearts and seek your way, in your guidance. Oh God, I ask you to heal the deep, deep wounds that have afflicted all of us in our childhood and in our youth, that have prevented us from seeking stainless and unsullied thy path. To bring the people together, to inspire the souls with kindness, to eradicate our judgments, our judgmentalness, to help us put aside our fears and our worries, and to turn to you and become agents of your word, to put our whole trust and confidence in you, and to serve your glorious cause among mankind, among humanity, to shine a light for others, to think not of ourselves, but to comfort the people and inspire them. Ya Bahá'u'lláh, God is most glorious. Have a blessed and beautiful day.